Aleppo, Syria is hit by airstrikes while diplomats from Russia and the US meet in New York to discuss another truce. The National Guard is called into North Carolina as protests escalate. The TTC is looking at a nearly $2 million shortfall in its 2017 budget, and it looks like a fare increase could be in the works.
Hi, and welcome to Humber News. I'm Brandon Richard Austin, coming to you from our newsroom here at Humber College North Campus. A state of emergency has been declared in Charlotte, North Carolina, following a second night of protests. Governor Pat McCrory made the declaration late last night, and he's called in the National Guard to help local police. The protest began as a prayer vigil for Keith Lamont Scott, who was shot and killed by police on Tuesday. Reports say the prayer group splintered and an angry crowd began to march downtown. Police in riot gear met the group, with officers using flash grenades and tear gas in an attempt to force the crowd to disperse. One person was critically injured, though Charlotte police are saying it was a civilian-on-civilian incident. The mayor of Charlotte says the city is considering a curfew. The International Syrian Support Group is meeting today in New York to discuss the possibility of reviving a truce in the region. The meeting will be chaired by U.S. and Russian diplomats. Meanwhile, this amateur video shows the latest airstrike to hit the rebel-held city of Aleppo. It comes just days after a ceasefire ended. Dozens of people died in the attack. The city has been the target of multiple airstrikes. Earlier this week, an attack on an aid convoy carrying supplies for 78,000 Syrians left the international community reeling. The U.S. was quick to point the finger at Russia, who denied any involvement and released footage of the convoy being followed by a pickup truck carrying a mortar. The two nations are hoping to come to an agreement to revive the failed ceasefire later today. Iraqi and American troops are decontaminating from an ISIS chemical attack Tuesday. The U.S. military says ISIS launched a chemical weapon into the Quaira air base in Iraq. The chemical is believed to have been either in the form of a rocket or an artillery shell. After U.S. troops tested it, they received an initial reading of a mustard agent. No troops were injured in the attack or have shown symptoms of exposure to mustard. A sample of the chemical has been sent for further testing. The Philippines president says he will invite UN chief and European Union officials to investigate his anti-drug campaign. Both organizations have criticized the deadly crackdown that has killed nearly 3,000 people in just 11 weeks. President Rodrigo Duterte has denied police involvement in the killings. He says he'd like to debate the UN and EU on the issue of human rights. Duterte has called UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon the devil and demanded the EU show him respect worthy of a president. Dramatic pictures today of an unexpected vehicle collision in China. Security footage shows a truck smashing into a school bus filled with kindergarten children. 2 people are in critical condition. 11 have been injured. The crash occurred during yesterday's morning rush hour. Police have detained the truck driver. The cause of the accident is under investigation. A report today that Canada's busiest airport is facing several lawsuits following a number of injuries and 1 death involving its wheelchair service. It comes from a CBC investigation into 8 lawsuits against the airport. One of the suits comes from the family of an 82-year-old St. Catharines woman who died from a fall after her prearranged wheelchair failed to show up at a Pearson terminal. The lawsuit is seeking more than $1 million. Another suit comes from a Manitoba woman whose pre-ordered wheelchair also wasn't delivered. The airport says both cases are the result of consumer negligence. The Greater Toronto Airport Authority says it receives 80,000 wheelchair requests monthly. The TTC is scrambling to fix a shortfall in the 2017 budget. At a committee meeting yesterday, TTC Chair Josh Coley said the deficit is partly because of changes made by the province. Mayor John Tory requested that all city departments trim their budgets by 2.6% this year. The TTC has been able to comply with this. However, Coley says it's not possible to come up with another $172 million. He says He says they need an increase in the subsidy either from the city or the province. Otherwise, fare increases and service cuts could be a reality. The TTC isn't the only way people ride in the city. A controversial bike licensing proposal will be presented next week at a Toronto City Council meeting. Sveta Soloveva with more on the story.
More than half Torontonians ride bikes. But will the city still be bike-friendly for you if you have to pass a test to ride bike and get a license? Etobicoke Council Stephen Holliday says a part of money from licensing fees could be used to create new bike lanes and spark awareness of safety among bike riders. Some Humber students who ride their bikes say licensing bikes isn't necessary. Hyphen Sue, second-year game programming student who bikes to school every day, says he will be surprised if the new licensing come to the city.
What?
Yeah.
That's crazy, yo.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'm new here to Canada, so I don't really feel good about the new bike license, and because I mean, like, I'm really busy with school and stuff. I don't get time to go get a license or something. And plus, it's like more laws you gotta abide by, and I don't feel pretty good about it.
David Martinez, first-year Media Foundation student, does not have a bike, but he says the new license rules would influence him to buy one.
Well, at the end, it's a vehicle, right? And it's a machine, so you have to make some kind of test to use it. That's my point.
Jake Thompson, Humber Athletic Center representative, says bikes play important part in healthy lifestyle, and licensing bikes will negatively affect sport education.
If they're adding all these barriers to it, then that'll just be negative reinforcement for children coming up who, maybe want to get into that kind of thing, bike around town for fun, and also for even the older generations who have been using their bikes for years, license-free.
The City of Toronto tried to establish a bicycle license at least 3 times before. However, the idea didn't work. The city rejected it for many reasons. The biggest one is it would be challenging to license bikes for children and it would cost more. With Humber News, Sveta Soloveva.
Bikes aren't the only thing the Toronto City Council is trying to take a bite out of. We get details from Robert Williamson.
They're loyal, cute, and a man's best friend until they become aggressive. Dog owners throughout Toronto could be facing new obstacles if their pet behaves dangerously. After over 1,000 reported incidents of dog bites last year, City Council met on Wednesday to discuss provisions surrounding dangerous dogs.
I'm a dog lover myself, and I know that you need to in order to properly care for a dog, you have to love them and want them to be trained properly and understand them.
The council believes that these are steps in the right direction towards public safety and nullifying the risk of dangerous dog bites. For Humber News, I'm Robert Williamson.
The relaunching of the North Space Gallery is attracting many students and faculty today. Alyssa Souza-Kerpal has the story.
The audience was in awe watching the visuals in the Digital Symposium event. People started pouring into the room. President of Humber, Chris Whitaker, introduced the event. York professor and graphic designer Michael Longford is the first keynote speaker to take the podium.
Digital media for so many years. I was excited to take advantage of this new display space in terms of this.
One of the key points he talked about was an app called Tentacles. People use their phones to interact with the art displayed on screens in the streets. Health and Science Administrator Nazleen Turji said what she took away from the event.
So there were lots of interesting ideas. So stuff that you see but you don't really think about. So just how technology is interacting with everything and it's all around us. And
the Digital Symposium was a success. Michael Longford was just one of the 4 keynote speakers at this event. Alyssa Souza-Kerpal, Humber News.
The Toronto District School Board is introducing a new protocol this school year that's making people think twice about where they go to school. Natalie Dixon with the story.
I'm Natalie Dixon, and I'm here at Humber College's Aboriginal Resource Center talking to people about the new Indigenous protocol that was brought in by the Toronto District School Board.
In students' morning announcements, they will now be hearing about the Indigenous territory that their school was built on.
For me here, it
It means a lot.
The acknowledgement is 3 paragraphs outlining history.
They don't know that First Nation people still exist.
The idea was suggested by the board's Aboriginal Community Advisory Committee in May.
For me, it's a great step for the Toronto District School Board to work towards truth and reconciliation.
In Toronto, it means more.
Toronto itself comes from an Indigenous word, takaranto.
Student Noah says it's a good thing.
I mean, over time, a lot of things have been taken away from them, so it's only fair to give them back what's theirs.
This is a huge step for many Torontonians. It has already been introduced to all 588 schools across the TDSB. Natalie Dixon, Humber News.
It's a gorgeous first day of autumn here in Toronto, but south of the border, parts of Minnesota are recovering after a series of flash floods left streets submerged and drivers stranded. Heavy rain fell overnight into this morning. Emergency crews responding to calls of severe flooding in municipal and residential areas. Stores were flooded and drivers were seen pushing or abandoning their vehicles. We're going to take a quick break now, and when we come back, we'll tell you what's happening in the world of sports. And Brittany Billette will have your 3-day forecast.
Well, it looks like Torontonians are getting a warm welcome from fall this season. Coming up next in your forecast, above average temperatures and more.
But first, there's a new king in town, and visitors at the Vienna Zoo are getting their first look. This cute little chick has finally made its debut after hiding for 4 weeks in the folds of its parents' belly. But once it grew too big to stay safely tucked away, it emerged to everyone's delight. The baby's gender still isn't clear, but will be determined when the feathers go under genetic testing. King penguins are the second largest penguin species next to emperor penguins.